Good afternoon, good evening, good night, depending from where you are joining us from. I know from people from Africa, which you have a good number of them at this meeting tonight. The time is fast spent in Africa, the mother earth of this global community. When we say Africa, we are the mother earth. So now, that's why we're saying good evening, good night, but please don't sleep off. We just have 90 minutes for us to be at this event. And I will be glad that you will really, truly, and sincerely benefit from the selected speakers we have. So we are joining again the United Nations Commission on Social Development 60th section to discuss partnership with action in educating grassroots citizens for sustainable livelihood, well-being, and dignity for all. The major slowdown in global economic growth in 2020 has made progress in poverty eradication more challenging with adverse impact on hunger. The combined effect of stimulus packages, vaccine availability, and the relaxation of mobility restriction has restarted the economic engines in many countries, most significantly among young generation in community, making economic recovery to be slow across communities with mental confusion, especially in the minds of the young people. The International Monetary Fund, the IMF, forecasts rates of global economic growth at 5.9% in 2021 and 4.9% in 2022. Meanwhile, inflation has increased in most emerging market economies, raising concerns that might lead to microeconomic policy adjustments that will lower growth forecasts. The COVID-19 crisis not only created new poor but also led to further impoverishment of those already living in poverty. Since the onset of the crisis, both the number of people living in extreme poverty and those living just above the global poverty line and income from $1.90 to $3 per day has increased. The crisis has increased food insecurity, encouraged hunger and threat to well-being and sustainable livelihood, adversely hinder social protection measures, and towards progress towards achieving the 2030 Development Agenda. Ms. CARICOM Foundation International and Queen's Elite Lions Club see the young generation as vulnerable group greatly affected by the present crisis, including their education, health, social relationship, and overall well-being. The organizations consider it significantly necessary to utilize the digitalizing fashion education to lead young people, young youth, and younger generation into small-scale businesses, connecting them to styles and strategies of eradicating poverty scheme and ending hunger. Ms. CARICOM International Foundation and Queen's Elite Lions Club admonish that strong will is needed to bring the Commission of Social Development 60th Section Priority Team into action in the minds of young adults and youth in communities of developing countries through education, economic empowerment, business skills, and exchange opportunities that could encourage sustainable livelihood in the minds of the young adults and youth. This side event wishes to bring into discussion priority theme of the 60th section of the Commission through investing in the future and well-being of youth and young adults in community, focusing on their basic needs. Focusing on their basic needs, skill acquisition and entrepreneurship, social protection and well-being, and inclusive, sustainable livelihood transformation. Through the theme Partnership with Action in Educating Grassroots Citizens for Sustainable Livelihoods, Well-being and Dignity for All, the organization Miss CARICOM International Foundation and the Queen Elite Lions Club will invest in human capacities and basic infrastructure, foster economic security and strengthen social protection system, including social protection laws. They will address food insecurity and transforming agri-food systems. They will work to close poverty gaps and address multiple causes of poverty, hunger, and inequality in the minds of young people. They will wish to promote digital and financial inclusions and ensuring equal opportunities through partnerships. The outcome of this discussion will work towards designing skills acquisition and development curriculum on youth empowerment and education, as well as establishing community cohort to help youth to independent livelihood in times of crisis and economic recovery, in emergencies, and in responding to the demands of the 2030 agenda. This is the introductory to this. With that being said, I would like to welcome Her Excellency Ambassador Dr. Monica Sanchez, the CEO of Miss CARICOM International Foundation, to give her welcome speech. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ada, for that introduction and opening remarks. Observing all protocol, I would like to welcome everyone to this international forum. Let me first welcome my panelists, UN Global Ambassador and Humanitarian Actor Danny Glover, New York State Senator James Saunders Jr., Chairman of Economic and Banking Committee, Dr. Claire Nicholas, Nebraska, our PhD student, Van Jemkar, I hope I said that right, Nebraska, Dr. Devin Bannister, CEO of MacBan Corp, Mr. Sawala Kessley, CEO of Africa Center and Secretary of Queen's Elite Lions Club. Of course, you all heard Dr. Ada Okika. She is the founder of our Global Education. And I am Dr. Monica Sanchez. Miss CARICOM International Foundation is a registered non-for-profit organization in permanent consultative status with the United Nations. We are an organization that was founded in 2004, operating in the US, Africa, Caribbean, in collaborative empowerment skill training network that is committed to ongoing and uplifting of cultural, educational to marginalized community in Africa, the Caribbean, and the US, targeting women and youths. Miss CARICOM is established in Gambia, Nigeria, Uganda, Venezuela, Panama, Guyana. In Nigeria, our skill training program have trained over 10,000 youths and marginalized citizens and have engaged the local community successfully, encouraging banks to give small loans to graduate of some of these skill training programs to become business owner. In Uganda, partnering with St. Mary's Medical Organization, serving the elderly and the youths with eyeglasses, eye exam, eye surgery. In Ghana, farming with Darko Emmanuel, who has an educational program, National Reading Association, dealing with the young people to establish farming back to the soil project. Miss CARICOM Foundation has established many programs during the COVID-19. Engaging with partners on the ground through social media, we were able to give out 50,000 loaves of bread to the rural area 10,000 hot meals to displaced citizens, PPP equipment, and other necessary help to communities and community-based organizations. Ms. CARICOM International have teamed up with the Lions Club International, partnering with Queen's Elite Lions Club, whose motto is to serve. We have partnered with them as a community-based group to reach a larger and more dynamic spectrum of marginalized people. Ms. CARICOM International Foundation, in its outreach program in developing countries, has utilized the use of mainstream media technology to engage, educate, and address a major concern in these grassroots communities. Ms. CARICOM Foundation has used cell phones and data sharing on social network to communicate with underground workers and residents of these communities in the distribution of essential supplies such as food, masks, medical supply. The task would be much more complicated and difficult to accomplish without technology and social media. As those regions are less developed and hard to reach, it is through these initiatives on partnership with action that enable collaboration action to ensure sustainable implementation. Ms. CARICOM organization have grown because of community-based and civic organization. We are an organization that engage the public. We engage the marginalized community. And in keeping with the decade of action, leaving no one behind, our goal is to connect all those citizens who are left behind with social media. We are trying to connect them because the UN says leave no one behind in this decade of action. And all these marginalized communities are being left behind. They are being left behind because technology and social media connects everyone. And if you're in a rural area and you do not have technology, you are missing out on education, you're missing out on security, you're missing out on health because you have no access to this information that is essential to your survival. So our partnership with civic organizations and the Lions Club is to try to implement programs that would lobby to ensure that these communities are equipped with technology that will connect them with mainstream media. So in partnering with the Lions Club, we hope that we are able to accomplish this in the decade of action and in keeping with UN policy, leaving no one behind, and eradicating poverty. So I thank you very much, and I look forward to a great panel and a great discussion. And I turn you back over to Dr. Ada. Dr. Ada.
Thank you, Dr. Sanchez, for that excellent welcome remarks. When we were thinking of a theme that could be associated with Ms. CARICOM International Foundation, being an NGO in special consultative status with the United Nations, we thought it necessary and important that the best theme is to look at partnership in actions. Because Ms. CARICOM Foundation has committed to ensuring or to bring sustainable livelihood to the communities through partnerships. And this has been resulted in reaching out to the populace in rural communities who are struggling in ardent poverty. I'm surprised she forgot to mention about agriculture that have been established, I think in is it Venezuela also, and
It,
all the rest of. So it's been a diverse activities that has been achieved by Miss CARICOM Foundation as a result of partnerships. So I thank you, Dr. Sanchez, for that. And we don't want to say more grease to your elbows because Miss CARICOM Foundation was established for the purpose of this mission. So before we go on further, before I bring in our guest speaker to declare the presentation open, I would like us to have a listen to 3 minutes on the remarks from the UN Commission on Social Development Share of Bureau on the sustainable on this team for this year.
Mis cordiales saludos para todas y todos. Soy María del Carmen Esquef, embajadora de la Misión Permanente de Argentina ante las Naciones Unidas en Nueva York. La pandemia COVID-19 presenta desafíos sin precedentes al desarrollo social y al bienestar de las personas. Atento que se ha profundizado la pobreza y se han exacerbado las desigualdades preexistentes, siendo los grupos vulnerables los más afectados. Una de las mayores urgencias de la comunidad internacional en este momento es garantizar que la vacuna que se produzca para prevenir la enfermedad sea accesible a todas las naciones de una manera equitativa. En este contexto de crisis, en muchas partes del mundo, las tecnologías digitales tienen un rol crucial para mantener a nuestras sociedades activas, permitiendo el acceso a la educación o al trabajo remoto. Por esta razón es importante preguntarnos, especialmente por nuestro trabajo diario en las Naciones Unidas, ¿son las tecnologías digitales accesibles a todos? ¿Son las tecnologías digitales una realidad en la vida de cada persona? La pandemia COVID-19 demostró que el acceso a la conectividad e inclusión digital es un derecho básico. Lamentablemente, existen importantes brechas en el acceso real y efectivo al mundo digital. Puedo decirles que en mi región, América Latina y el Caribe, hay más de 40 millones de hogares no conectados. En este sentido, los invito a examinar las siguientes cuestiones. En primer lugar, por la pandemia hemos recibido muchas lecciones. ¿Cómo aprovechamos esas lecciones para reconstruirnos mejor, teniendo en cuenta las necesidades de los grupos más vulnerables? En segundo lugar, ¿cómo logramos el mencionado objetivo con la ayuda de las tecnologías digitales inclusivas? Al mismo tiempo, es necesaria la implementación de medidas para cerrar la brecha digital, ya que 3.6 billones de personas en el mundo no tienen acceso a Internet. En la 59 sesión de la Comisión de Desarrollo Social nos focalizaremos en estas cuestiones, ya que resulta necesario revisar la agenda social a la luz de la emergencia sanitaria por COVID-19. Estoy convencida que con su activa participación y compromiso podemos encontrar soluciones que guiarán a las generaciones actuales y futuras. Estimados colegas, no es mi intención que estas palabras sean un monólogo, sino una invitación a una reflexión profunda y sincera. Esta sesión no es... Espero contar con su participación en la primera sesión de la Comisión de Desarrollo Social que tendrá lugar entre el 8 y el 17 de febrero. La sesión nos brindará la oportunidad única de debatir sobre la construcción desde nuestro lugar de un mundo más inclusivo, justo e igualitario. Muchas gracias.
Yes, so with that said, I would like to invite His Excellency, the United Nations Global Ambassador on Humanitarian Affairs, a global celebrity and a supporter of humanity, Danny Glover, to give us special guest speech. And can you unmute yourself?
Thank you, Dr. Otter. I certainly want to commemorate Ms. CARICOM, Monica Sanchez, on the splendid work that she's done, consistency in bringing communities together and individuals together. Certainly, the issues that have always been a part of development and and also a part of the work that all of us do in the service of humanity have been exasperated by the COVID-19 pandemic. The difficulty of that and the challenges that are there right now are enormous. So that every bit of work that we do as citizens, not simply of our individual countries, but citizens of the world, every bit of we can push forward humanity in such a way that we are able to celebrate what the real question is and the question about what does it mean to be a human being is the first question in philosophy. What does it mean to be a human being? What is our responsibility to our fellow human beings across national lines? What is our responsibility to finding greater inclusiveness and power for women and others who are marginalized? And whatever we can do in every effort as we look at our world post the pandemic itself is essential and important. That work certainly recognizing the extraordinary talent and the extraordinary gifts that are available everywhere is the work that Ms. CARICOM has done for decades, not decades, but for many years with Sister Monica, Dr. Monica Sanchez. So please allow me to kind of listen to the work that you're doing and add whatever I can in moving forward in this very challenging times. And there are challenges, but to see an array of extraordinary men and women who are up to that challenge and doing their work is something that has kept me buoyant and allowed me to do as much as I can do and encourage me to do as much as I can do as possible. Thank you. Thank you. I will continue to be certainly involved right now in the conversation and in this moment. And I thank you for indulging me. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Danny. We know you are a busy man. You have to pull out from their present action joint right now to be able to be here. We appreciate you for that. And
I feel that I was appointed in 1995 as the first, along with Nadine Gordimer, the great South African writer, as the first Goodwill Ambassador for the United Nations Development Program. The idea of development and real development and the value of the work that the UN has done and other agencies to meet the needs of people is something that we have to celebrate and also have to find many other ways in which we engage and ask the questions that are necessary about development. With a population that certainly it's over estimates from 12 billion people there are 12 billion people. We have a lot of work to do on this planet. And certainly the work that's being done with this conference, is certainly a standard to be emulated in other places as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. You know, one thing that one of the major concerns of this Commission on Social Development is development. And one of other major areas for the 2030 development agenda is partnership. So we are very much comfortable with your presentation and your input that citizens should be made to push humanity to sustainable livelihood. And the only way we can do is to partnering, not pushing them with truck or flogging them to put, but partnership to encourage them to see humanity as a group, as a focus group that should be highly regarded in terms of providing amenities, opportunities, and situations for sustainable livelihood. So this is very, very commendable, Danny. I would thank you so much for including also the women and girls, women and youth, to inclusiveness of what you consider as aspects of development in areas of humanity. So we thank you so much, and we don't want to tell you to stay or leave, but we will appreciate if you stay with us as we continue to deliberate on this important topic. Thank you for your time. I know it was not easy for you to be here, but we are very much glad that you are here. Thank you so much. And then I don't know if I can just have one question from anyone for Danny, because as a Nigerian, I was told that when you climb an Iroko tree, take everything you want to take before you climb down, because you might not have opportunity to climb it again. Just one or two questions for Danny before he leaves.
Oh.
Oh, great.
I'm impressed, not one question.
Oh my God, not even one question. Sorry, someone is raising the hand. Yes, this from, oh great, from Uganda. Can you test your question on the chat, because we can't hear you from where you are?
You can't hear me?
No, I mean the person wanting to ask question from Uganda.
They can't hear me from Uganda.
Yes, they can hear you very well, but he cannot ask us question because he's an attendee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, can you test your question on the chat, please?
I see.
Paul, are you okay? We are not seeing you type. One other person that has question for Daddy should type it. Okay, you okay? I thought you raised your hand to ask question. So Danny, you okay? Oh, he said he's typing. He's typing.
I'm sorry. He's typing now?
Yeah, he's typing the question for you.
Okay.
Oh, great. He said, what are your views on global warming?
I think that we're in a very dangerous moment. I echo the voices who talk about and speak about eloquently about climate change and global warming. It is a serious matter. How do we look at development now in that relationship? A great deal of the resources in the world, while representing a small percentage of the world's population, the United States represents about 33%, a third of the resources that which is unsustainable. Their usage of a third of the resources is unsustainable. So the idea about sustainability is about how do we look at global warming, and also how do we look at the world where there's an equitable distribution of resources at this particular moment. Certainly the work that I've been able to do, and whether in Latin America or in Africa and other places, has been in concert with communities who are challenging the existing ideas around development, the role that women play in development, the essential role that women play in development, and the essential role that women play in around the world in terms of coming to grips with the ideas of global warming. Women have been essential in that struggle against the massive waste and finding creative ways of pushing forward and moving forward with another agenda that is not only saving us, but saving human beings and humanity in the future. And so I want to applaud women for that, the work they do around the world in concert with each other, often collectively and often individually. But it is important for us to understand that it is our responsibility, every single one of us, a responsibility in making sure that there's a future that is bountiful, a future that our children and our grandchildren to be, and for the future, in terms of dealing with the issues of global warming and climate change.
That question came for Karen from the Queen's Elite Lions Club in New York. And the poll from Uganda's question is, what's your views on encouraging youth in Africa to embrace art as source of income and building their communities better?
I think for so long, so much of my life has been in the service of supporting liberation struggles. Certainly, before my work with the anti-apartheid movement, through my art, through plays, the plays of the great South African playwright Athol Fugard, but also throughout my involvement in the mid-'70s with the African Liberation Support Committee. And that is the struggle to gain independence and sovereignty for Mozambique, Guinea-Bissau, Angola, and Namibia, all these countries, and of course, the end of apartheid. And certainly those were often in support of armed struggles, whether it was Frelimo in Mozambique, MPLA in Angola, SWAPO in Namibia. So all these kind of ways, and of course the ANC and other forces in South Africa have been a part of my life since the mid-'70s. And that was in response to a great an upsurge and an extraordinary moment of action for African Americans, linking themselves to not only the freedom of Mandela, but also linking to themselves to those armed struggles were very vital to bring independence to those places, and particularly the Portuguese colonies. So I think on the one side, we have to think of the struggle now, and the continuum of that struggle is that where the resources that are going to come, how are we going to harness those resources, and how are we going to equitably distribute those resources to people in their development? That's the main question, not only for Africa, but other places in the African diaspora as well. And I think that's the key for us when we think about that. as a goodwill ambassador to the United Nations Development Program initially, and now to UNICEF, as which I've been involved in campaigns around those issues, and elevating the role of women as they deal with those issues on a daily basis. So I think we have to continue that. Certainly, a great deal of our work has been undermined by the global pandemic of the COVID pandemic, but it simply we have to continue to focus on those instruments that we have, and to build new instruments and continue to build new instruments. But we're in the moment, and in the moment, there's a great deal of what we must do and have no choice to do at this particular moment. We as humanity, and it is certainly a privilege to know that the work that is happening right now, the work that organizations like this CARICOM, other organizations that look at not only what has happened in the past, but try to form institutions and relationships that make a better and provide a better future as well.
Thank you so much, Danny Glover, for your time and your input to these questions. I know if we open the door, more of the attendees will ask questions, but we wouldn't want to waste more of your time. So thank you so much. And thank you. Keep supporting us at Miss CARICOM International Foundation. We love you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Glover. As always, you know we love you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are moving on. We just did this a little spotlight so that the other speakers will have a touch of Danny Glover. Thank you so much. Yeah, the next speaker is Dr. Clara Nicholas, who is the Assistant Professor, Department of Anthropology and Assistant Curator of Ethnology, Sam Noble, Oklahoma Museum of Natural History, University of Oklahoma. Yes. Thank you.
Hi, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Thank you very much for, can you see the screen and the slides and all that? Okay. Thanks very much for hosting and inviting me to come be part of this conversation today. I very much appreciate it. I'm trained as a sociocultural anthropologist, and a lot of my work has been on textiles and craftsmanship in Morocco. But I'm here today to speak a little bit more generally about fashion, textiles, and entrepreneurship as it relates to creating sustainable forms of life and dignity of work for people all over the world. And I'm also here with Ven Jemcour, who's a PhD student in the Department of Textiles, Merchandising, and Fashion Design at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. So our plan, if this works, was that I would speak for about 15 minutes, and then Ven would sort of jump in and speak right after me, and I have her slides as well as my own to go through. So hopefully that's okay. So the first thing we wanted to talk about was what kinds of skills and education are beneficial for young people, or really anyone seeking to go into fashion or textile entrepreneurship. And those skills are really varied. And so some of them are coming out of very kind of straightforward business management types of expertise or skill, like accounting, market research, sales, human resources management, and would also entail things like market research, or what entrepreneurs talk a lot about as customer discovery, where it involves kind of understanding the needs of your potential customers or end users, depending on the product. And that's, relevant for entrepreneurship in any domain. What's maybe specific to fashion design or textile design or craft is also the utmost importance of sourcing. And that's especially critical for thinking about sustainability and sustainable fashion, or sometimes talking about slow fashion. And that could be local sourcing. It could be, global sourcing. So these fashion industry in particular is really a global, marketplace and a global economic system. So learning to navigate that ethically is really important. Also, design and art backgrounds are very critical to being successful. You have to understand aesthetics, the design process. Fashion is also a functional garment or set of garments. So you're thinking about the body and movement and mobility and size and all of that. So product design is really critical, as well as developing a collection or a line of products that kind of go together and speak to brand identity. So one experience in developing some of these skills that I wanted to share was a project that I undertook with a collaborator at the University of Nebraska, Lincoln. Her name is Surin Kim, and Surin's background is in entrepreneurship, mostly from a kind of technology background, and mine is in craft and anthropology. So we put together a training workshop for local members of Lincoln, Nebraska's immigrant and refugee communities. So these were mostly women from both different parts of Asia, as well as South Sudan, the Middle East, and East Africa. And so the workshops were designed as a two-part series. The first part was about learning product development and design related to textile products, and having folks actually do a prototype of a product, think about design and material selection and color. And then the second half of it was workshops, kind of more straightforward in terms of business planning and costing. Also, what was really important for these, for people in this local community was to understand the resources available to them in Lincoln, access to equipment or special equipment that they might use for low cost or no cost, and building a network among themselves. So that's a really important, like having a support network of peers, fellow entrepreneurs, sharing information and resources is really critical to success. And that's something entrepreneurs talk about a lot, is creating an ecosystem for entrepreneurship. So even though a lot of the participants in these workshops weren't necessarily interested in starting a business, many of them saw this as an opportunity to generate income, to be more financially independent, to balance with other kinds of responsibilities and duties, maybe at home. So that was sort of the goal of that. And it was a nice combination. One of the things that became really important as part of that workshop was to communicate how critical it is to think about your brand identity, and that the person behind the brand, the maker, the producer, the designer, really is part of that brand identity. So the story of the entrepreneur or the producer, their personal background, their narrative is part of what adds value to these kinds of products or services. And so as a consumer, when you're thinking about buying something, you're always looking for what aligns with your own kind of tastes or ethics or identity. And so having that match up with the brand or the product you're buying is really critical. So this is a screenshot from 10,000 Villages, which many people know is a chain that works with artisan communities or individual artisans around the world to kind of do product development that are sold then in stores throughout the United States. And one of the things that's really obvious about this website is that you see, beautifully presented product, but you also see, information like handmade in India, or there's a maker tab that shows the profile of the producer and a picture of the producer. And so that story is really foregrounded alongside with a beautiful design. This is also really important in thinking about sustainability and transparency, which I think consumers also increasingly want to know that every material they're buying, or the way that things are sourced, are ethical, that labor laws have been respected, that people are being paid a fair wage for their work. So any kind of development of a business in this domain, that's something that's really important, I think, for the long run in terms of sustainability. So some of the examples or models of entrepreneurship and business development that I've come across in my own research in Morocco, but also in some more recent kind of related work on textile production in Guatemala, there seems to be a few kind of key structures for this. And so a lot of emphasis has been given on production and commercialization cooperatives. That's very evident in Morocco and Guatemala, so I'll speak about that in a moment. And then also micro enterprise or small business is obviously a key structure that operates in slightly different ways in different places. And then self-employment is a really common model for becoming an entrepreneur. And that would be a situation where you're maybe subcontracting with a larger company or doing a smaller kind of scope of work or tasks that are coordinated with somebody else's business as well. So in terms of the first of those, thinking about production cooperatives that also do commercialization of textiles, these have been really popular as development tools in sort of the, so to speak, global South, especially with traditional textiles and crafts. And so I've got a few images here. One is the Trauma Textiles Cooperative, which is a cooperative of Maya weavers in Guatemala. And the other is an image of carpet weavers in the Bugsmez Valley in Morocco. And in both of these places, but particularly in Morocco, I know that better, cooperatives oftentimes are supported by government ministries, also oftentimes in coordination with development agencies like UNDP or the Millennium Challenge Corporation or other kinds of funders, and often maybe supported by local foundations or in association with nonprofits. So there's a lot of incentivizing and support for cooperatives. So things like tax incentives or providing accounting expertise or filing taxes for the cooperative. That part is handled through the government. But these are viewed as job creators and also as an effective structure to pool and kind of amplify the power of resources of the collective, not sharing knowledge and effort. And then the benefits as well are evenly, distributed and shared. That's the logic. Also, this has been an important tool in connecting, especially women, craftspeople, directly to consumers rather than going through chains of intermediaries who oftentimes are taking, adding cost and taking their own profit, which you get to the point where by the time it's getting into the hands of a consumer, the cost has been amplified or multiplied, two or three times. And the producer is seeing very little of that profit. So the cooperative, if done well, is interfacing directly with consumers, and they also can then respond to the consumers' needs more effectively and in a more nimble fashion. The Trauma Textiles Cooperative also has been very effective, maybe more so than some cooperatives in Morocco, with e-commerce and web presence. So the advantage of, again, reaching more consumers through digital means. I know that was something that was emphasized in the introductory remarks and throughout this commission, is that kind of access is critical to the success of these kinds of businesses, especially in getting beyond one's kind of immediate geography. And then in terms of micro enterprise or small business or self-employment, I think, again, these kinds of structures, I think always want to become informed about what the local legal and tax kind of ramifications are of organizing, yourself in a particular way. But for a small business, that's a really common strategy for fashion designers in particular, maybe a little bit more so than craft producers. So this is a great example of someone who did just that. The brand label here is Amade, and it's a Nigerian brand. The creative director is Amade Nzerebe. And she actually was a lawyer or trained in law and then became a fashion designer kind of after the fact, and has had really great success on an international scale. But really it started, very locally, looking at adire, which is, tie-dye and batik textile traditions in Nigeria, and designing new fabrics, in coordination with craftspeople, and then building those into inclusive designs for women of all ages and all sizes. So this is an example of, one of her designs here on the right. And these have been really, really popular, and she's had a lot of success and press. So that kind of a model obviously involves more than one person. There's a whole team of people working with her. And so building a good team is, a skill in and of itself. So I'm going to wrap up, my comments by pointing to maybe some secrets to success based on some of this, my background and working with fellow entrepreneurs. The importance, again, of developing a unique brand identity cannot be underestimated. So figuring out what sets, your product or your brand apart from competitors is critically important. I said this before, but forming a strong support network among peers, building up that ecosystem for entrepreneurship. It doesn't just sort of come out of nowhere. It takes time to build that, and entrepreneurs can support one another. They don't have to be only in competition with one another. Being informed about government incentives, programs, and tax policies regarding small business or self-employment can really be critical, and oftentimes might require the expertise of an accountant or a lawyer. And there are people obviously who specialize in that. So that's critical when you're setting something up initially. Knowing your customer, and that's important. And it also connects with recent entrepreneurship development methodologies like the Lean Startup method, which is taught in a lot of business schools in the United States. And it really emphasizes what's called the customer discovery process, which is that you really have to do your homework on who you are hoping to reach with your products, You need to talk to them, to, spend time with them, to see what their habits are, what their needs are, what their tastes are. You don't sort of dream up an idea and then put it out in the world without sort of having that iterative process. Part of your design is prototyping and testing it. So that kind of a method is something that has proven to be successful for some entrepreneurship models in the US. It came out of more of a technology startup model, but no reason why it can't be applied to fashion and textiles. And then lastly, and Dr. Sanchez emphasized this as well, but the importance of effective social media. This goes with developing your unique brand identity. It goes with effective marketing, but that cannot be underestimated as critical. So here I have a screenshot from a label, a Senegalese label. The designer is Sarah Diouf, and the brand is Tongoro. And so, this is a great Instagram feed with very clean images that really highlight, great design, wonderful fabric. So, that helps you connect again with consumers and conveys, who she is as a brand too. So that is all I have to say for my comments. And I'm going to turn it over to Ven to continue. Is that okay with everyone?
For a minute, we have Senator Sanders on the line. You just came out of meeting, so after that, Vance will come in. Okay.
Okay, I will stop my share.
Thank you. Wow, this is a lucrative presentation giving us insight to entrepreneur skills development and opportunities. And Dr. Nicholas was able to mention on startup, effective social media, cooperative, exploring your entrepreneurship development method, and utilizing fashion and textile in order to these are resources, these are skills and innovations that can help in eradicating poverty, ending hunger, and also creating a sustainable livelihood and well-being. So we are going to go more into this when Ven comes out to speak. But before then, we want to bring in the New York State Senator, Senator James Sanders Jr., to come and give us an intervention statement on partnership in action with respect to economic development. Senator Sanders, you have the floor.
I don't think he's online. I think he had to go. So I don't see him. He had another meeting and he was waiting a minute. So.
Okay. All right. If he comes back, we'll bring him again. So.
Okay. So share my screen again.
Yeah. So then come up and do your presentation.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nicholas. Thank you, Dr. Sanchez, Dr. Aida, and Danny Glover, and everyone here. Thank you so much. Well, my name is Veronica Jemku. I'm a PhD student at UNL in the Department of Textiles, Merchandising, and Fashion Design. I would like to tell you about my fashion journey. So my journey started with an informal education in fashion design. Even though I was receiving a formal education, my mother thought it was a good idea to add an informal education in fashion since I was drawn to sewing. By the way, I used to sew little dresses for my dolls when I was younger. So I used to go to the tailor store, to the tailor shop during holidays, and soon I started applying what I learned at the workshop to my daily life. I started stitching torn garments, fixing buttons, reshaping garments for my friends and family. As the years passed, I graduated to sewing garments from scratch. And then my mother decided it was time for me to start making money with my handcraft. She stopped giving me pocket money and asked me to start charging people for my labor. So I used the information I had already acquired from repairing garments and sewing new garments from friends and family to create a business model. At that time, I didn't think of it as a business model. I just thought it was, me just creating a market that will have a little competition, very little competition as possible, because there was a lot of tailors in the city. I decided, I identified the individual and the community needs, and I carved out a niche market that was needed and sustainable. Instead of waiting for consumers to come to me when they needed new clothing, I created hybrid designs based on Western traditional aesthetics, as well as the complaints from my previous customers, especially those that brought their garments for repair. I targeted women and men that have white-collar jobs because I know they work 9 to 5 and they could afford me, and they had little time to go to the tailors in the city. I designed clothing and sold to them. I took the designs to their places of work, and then in that way, I was introduced to their colleagues, eventually expanding my client base. It was important to get support from people around me because I didn't have a lot of money on my own. And instead of getting a loan, which a lot of people always make that mistake, trying to get a loan to start a business, sometimes just getting help from friends and family could serve you better than getting a loan from someone you don't know. I had help with the cost of my sewing machine, and after I was able to generate income, and I was able to take care of the cost of production. So my mother eventually encouraged me to pursue a degree in fashion design outside the country. I obtained a Bachelor's of Arts in Fashion Design in Malaysia. And during my study, I was part of a few fashion shows, one of which was the launching of the Samsung S phone. And after my study, I was encouraged by my parents to pursue a master's in apparel design in the USA. And I was opportune to showcase my designs at Kansas City Fashion Week and Omaha Fashion Week. I graduated last December with an MA in apparel design. And for my project, I created a plus size collection informed by the design criteria of plus size bloggers. I realized that the project was also informed by my experiences as a designer, because looking back to how I started as a local tailor, I used a similar criterion, like identifying my target group, making sure they were paying customers, and the designs I made fulfill their needs. So small micro events like spending time at the tailor store led me to this point in my life today. And it's important to let young girls, encourage young girls to dream big, encourage young girls to think about, taking the craft, besides formal education and specializing in that handcraft, because it can be a source of income, not only to them, but to the community, can be a way to grow the community. Thank you.
Can you remove your share? Yeah, good. Wow.
It was so beautiful. I didn't want to remove the share.
Wow. I really want to ask you, when you were sewing for friends and neighbors and families, stitching their bodies, how old were you?
I think I was between 13, because I started going to the tailors when I was 13 years old in high school. Yeah.
So the young one, I ask this question because those of us who are into youth empowerment and the communities, you can see the age that she started, and this is a good business model for you to identify your skills. This is very, very important. And talent, even your area of interest, and then work yourself to develop it to a sustainable livelihood. I think nobody will do shakara for her now because she can make money. Whether she has a PhD and no job, she will sit in her room and make her money, go online and sell her products. So it's a good model to eradicate poverty, end hunger, and maintain sustainable livelihood and well-being. So I thank you,
Thank you.
daughter of the soil. Keep on. So without wasting much of your time, I want to bring in Mr. K. I call him Mr. K because the name is too long for me to bite my tongue. I don't want to murder his name, even though he's from Africa. He's Mr. K, King K, to please come on board. He is the secretary of Queens Elite Lions Club, Queens, New York. Mr. K. Kesley, please take over.
Thank you, Dr. Adam. My name is Sewala Kesley. That's a Liberian and African, obviously.
Please say it again.
But I wish
Say
to
that name again.
Sewala Kesley.
Can you understand why I can't pronounce it?
It has a rhythm. It should be a lot easier. But let me not bore you here. I'd like to join the others and express our compliments and greetings to this side event of this 60th section, and also the team here, partnership with action in educating grassroots citizens for sustainable livelihood, well-being, and dignity for all. It's quite an interesting team, but let me congratulate this CARICOM International Foundation, along with Dr. Sanchez and the governor of the Lions Club, Mr. Alexander Kogren, for co-hosting this event this afternoon. Let me quickly begin by saying that the Queens Elite Lions Club is a fairly new organization. In fact, it's just 2.5 years old. So I am very new to the Lions Club. So is Dr. Sanchez. I'm the secretary and she's the president. And we both are relatively new to this club. I don't feel comfortable speaking on behalf of the Lions because I feel a little inadequate. So I am the executive director of the African Center, and therefore we have done a lot of work with young people both here in Africa and in other places. I feel comfortable in that skin, so I will speak from that perspective if you don't mind. So in that sense, I was just told a few hours ago by Dr. Sanchez that will be presented today. So I'm asking for your kind indulgence here, just to allow me the impromptu of my preparedness. So forgive me if I don't have anything properly written. But let's just briefly pivot to the subject matter here, especially when it relates to young people. Prior to COVID, our youth have been experiencing a lot of things. Like I said, I work with young people in America here and young people in Africa. In New York City, for example, there was always high unemployment and unemployment for young people. And the COVID situation just exacerbated that to the point today where in New York City, crime rate is very high. Whenever you have unemployment, underemployment, and a lot of hardship, people resort to other issues, other things that are not profitable to society. And crime is one of them. Domestic violence is another one. And you've seen among households in New York here where divorce and early death, those things are taking place there. Those things have been part and parcel of the lives of our young people, but the COVID experience has exacerbated that. Secondly, I live in Queens, Southeast Queens. Prior to 2008, with the financial crisis, it became the epic center of the foreclosure crisis in the whole country. And with COVID, it has only exacerbated that. In fact, Southeast Queens has not recovered from that crisis. And thirdly, in Queens alone, we had one of the highest rates of COVID death, especially among minority groups, the Black minority. And so this is also due to the fact that people do not have adequate access to healthcare, to a lot of other opportunities. So COVID is wreaking havoc on minority communities, on people of color. A lot of our local businesses too have closed down. If you look around Southeast Queens, when you travel around the place, you see businesses with padlocks. They were already struggling. COVID has not helped. In fact, about 4 years ago, because of the foreclosure crisis, we got together along with other residents to organize a credit union for the community. We managed to raise over $100,000. We need to raise $1 million. Up to this time, we've not been able to raise that money. But yet and still, because of Black Lives Matter, there were monies going all around the place. But these monies were selectively given to certain neighborhoods, certain people and all of that, and we've not benefited from it. Now, with the youth in particular, they have been saddled with student loan. Let's be frank, higher education today in this country is for profit making. And oftentimes, students are engaged in courses that do not benefit them in whatsoever in a lot of ways. And at the end of the day, these young people come out with student loan that they can't pay, they can repay. And as a result, if you can't pay your student loan, there are a number of things that happen to you. One of them is that you are denied job opportunities because you have bad credit. You can't buy homes because you have bad credit. You can't get a loan to open businesses because you have bad credit. So one thing leads to the other. Secondly, unlike other communities, our young people do not have access to opportunities in economic, training. So as a result, a lot of these young people now are resorting to drug dealing, to crime, to other ways to sustain themselves. And can you blame them? Oftentimes, the solution to those problems is that we lock them up and put them in jail. And so the jail now is packing up. The other thing here too is that our young people in most inner cities in this country are miseducated. If you look at the public school system, they were not designed practically to work for our young people. So a lot of these young people are failing. And now the school system is serving as a pipeline to the prison system. So you have a prison industrial complex that is being privatized, that is growing considerably at the expense of young people. Those things need to stop. Let's pivot to Africa, where some of us have done some work there. And let me just talk about my village a little bit. I come from a village that they call Raima, and it's a remote village where up to this point, you don't have any car roads going there. Cars can't travel there. The last time I was there, I had to walk miles just to get there. But when I got there, I saw some funny phenomena. When I got there, I saw young people, very young kids, who didn't have access to education. They weren't going to school. These kids were gifted. They were bright. They were smart. But no school to go to, no primary school to go to. Then, but the other phenomena that I noticed is that there were young people who went to school, got education, high school education, couldn't go to college because they didn't have the means to go. And they returned home, they couldn't find jobs. They returned home and engaged in subsistence farming. They were having multiple wives and having a bunch of children. The children weren't going to school either. So the poverty level is being exacerbated. The food insecurity is being exacerbated. How do you deal with those things? And yet and still you have some African governments that are not even looking at their own people and the needs of their own people. That's a problem. The other thing here too, just recently, I have 4 nephews in their early teens and from 16 to 19. 3 of them died within a week's time. One graduated from high school, got one morning, he had this headache and all of that, no access to medical care. He complained, he died that evening. Another one drove motorcycle for a living. He had an accident, he passed away too. Another one went on the farm to cut trees. You know, in Africa, we fall trees and whatnot just to clear the place and make farm. The tree fell on him, he died. Another one, the tree fell on him, today he's paralyzed. But if you look across Africa and most third world countries, that's the harsh reality. You want to get people from mat to mattress, but most people are not even on the mat. And so the sustainable goal for the UN is laudable, is great, But if things are not done to help these people, things are not going to get better. And the last two things I want to talk about here is the challenges that organizations and people face. Let's be honest here. A lot of people who run organizations, a good number of them are very egotistic and selfish. We're trying to build individual empires. So oftentimes there's a lack of cooperation. There's a lack of partnership. There's a lack of collaboration. In order to solve problems and elevate people to the next level in our community, in any community in Africa, the Caribbean, or Latin America, or the third world, people have to learn to cooperate. They have to learn to have partnership. Oftentimes, even in this country, that's not happening that often. So that needs to change. The other thing here too is that a lot of international NGOs that travel to Africa, that go to Africa to do some work there, most of them carry expatriates with them, and they pay them huge salaries. And oftentimes, the bulk of the money is returned to the home country, as opposed to being invested in the country that they want to serve. I mean, that's not fair. The other thing here too is that there is an inadequate allocation of resources. Even in this country, I had to deliver a speech somewhere, and when I did some research, the funding for non-for-profits mirrored that of the larger society. About 10% of the largest non-for-profit in this country take in about 90% of the grants or of the money, and the rest of the 10%, 90% taking 10% of the resources. So if you live in a community where you are resource deprived, how do you navigate that? It's a challenge. And lastly, I just have a few suggestions here to make with respect to how we can ameliorate this situation. We should encourage governments, especially governments in developing countries and whatnot, to be responsive to the needs of their citizenry. Oftentimes, aids are given to our country, Africa in particular, and most of that money is siphoned out of the country and put into foreign banks. If you want to help Africa, then stop that massive transfer of funds, because it's crippling the countries. Secondly, African countries should not depend on aid alone, because the aids that they send them, they have a lot of attachments and a lot of conditions, and those conditions are not favorable to development on the continent or in those respective countries. That needs to change. Secondly, I'm talking about better partnerships and collaboration between public and private sectors. We need to encourage that. And thirdly, there is a huge trust deficit. A lot of us in minority communities, we do not trust each other. We need to find a way to reduce that. And fourthly, a lot of our young people must be engaged from the onset of the process of policy development, policy formation, and policy implementation. Oftentimes, we as adults are developing policies for young people and they have no part in it. We are prescribing for them what we think is good for them. But where are they? Why shouldn't they be involved in the process from the inception and in the implementation? And a lot of us who head organizations and who lead other groups, we die in office. The same thing is happening on the continent. So when do you train the next generation to take over? In fact, they should be working with you while you are in office. That ought to be part of the stuff. The other thing here too is that there's what they call mentoring and internship and practical training. Let's try to mentor our young people. A lot of us have skill sets. We have expertise. Let's mentor the young people so that they take over from us. And lastly, let's try to break down that ethnic, religious, race, and other barriers to our coexistence. Oftentimes, we are made to fight against each other. It's black against white, Indian against this other group. We are not enemies. Some people are benefiting from the division. So the sooner we all realize that we are all in the same boat together, that we need to partner and work together, that we are all human beings, we have one race, that's the human race, things will change. So again, I want to thank you for this opportunity that you've given me just to expound a few things. Congratulations to the rest of the speakers and whatnot, and let's have a wonderful section.
This is interesting for someone that said he was not prepared. I wonder, I wonder what he would have given us if he had prepared the way he taught it. When Mr. Kesley started, he said he was not prepared. And I'm surprised to hear these initiatives and interventions from excellent ones. So his speech is really directed to concerns and the youth themselves, the concerns of the youth, the younger generation, and the younger generation themselves. He mentions particularly, which if Senator Sanders was there, he would also speak in that dimension about economic partnership. Partnership is not just coming together to sit on the table. There is also economic partnership, which is an aspect of business model development that can contribute greatly to sustainable livelihood. While the area of encouraging government to be responsive to needs of their citizenry is a vital issue. But most of the times when I speak to my fellow non-profit organizations, I do tell them that time has come to reverse the case because the non-profit can bridge the gap where the government cannot. And that's very, very important, very, very vital. Because when you look at government, they talk about political continuity, want to be in government, want to be on the seat. They talk about politics, party issues, and all the rest of them, including global policies, just like being a member state of the UN. They get involved in global policies and all the too much on the desk. So we organizations should actually cooperate together, come together in partnership to solve some of these things. Just like Mr. Kesley was mentioned about his own community in Liberia, we can partner with such organization there to look at some of these issues, especially when it comes to education and health, because these are the basics to sustainable livelihood and well-being and dignity for everyone. So, Mr. Kesley, thank you so much for these interventions, and I believe that with the outcome, the intended outcome of Miss CARICOM International Foundation of building a community cohort, this intervention will form part of it along the line with business model and other initiatives that came up from this speaker. So thank you so much. You were really prepared. So don't deceive us next time. Thank you. And with that, I want to invite in my big boss, His Excellency, Ambassador Dr. Devon Bannister, to please give us intervention statement.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Okika. Thank you. Let me say a pleasant good afternoon, good evening, good night, good morning, depending on whichever part of the world you're listening to us. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you very much for taking your time to be here to join this discussion and to hear what suggestions and recommendations can be made to help in this time that we're facing. Let me say thank you very much to Ambassador Dr. Monica Sanchez, the founder for Miss CARICOM International Foundation, who is one of my fellow countrywomen. We are both from the same country, Guyana. Big up to Guyana. And my countrywoman, my sister there, Dr. Sanchez, as well as the Lions Club, the Queen's Elite District, District 20 Killians. Thank you very much as well for partnering with the Miss CARICOM Foundation to host this side event on Commission of Social Development, the 60th session. So, interestingly, as you said, Dr. Ada, the previous speaker, I would not try to pronounce his name because I don't want to bite my tongue. I say if Dr. Ada can't pronounce the name, I don't try, because she's the one that teaches me to pronounce all the African names. So if she's not going to try, I will not try. I don't want to butcher your name, sir. All the best, though. Interestingly, you touched something that that I have written down here to touch, but I'm going to piggyback off of it, and I'm going to continue to ride that horse. So we will beat the same horse as we go. But you know, partnership is something that is very, very, very important. When I was getting married, my mentor said to me, he said, son, it takes two to tango. One can't tango by themselves. It takes two to tango. And at the same time, one hand cannot clap. You need two hands to clap. So which means as much as you might be an individual, you might have a company, you might have your business, you might have an idea, whatever it is, you need a partner to go with you. And we have seen this many, many, many times. As you can see, if you look at the current stance of the world today, a lot of countries that try to say, I can do this on my own, they still had to turn back and partner with another country. A lot of businesses that used to operate on their own, they had to find means and ways to partner with other businesses. Neighbors, two houses together, two separate families. At some point in time, they had to come together to show unity. Our country, the motto is one people, one nation, one destiny. At the end of the road, if that unity isn't there, if the people doesn't come together to work together, you can't achieve, you can't eradicate, you can't beat poverty. You have to do that. So as organizations, as businesses, and as individuals, the number one thing that we have to remember is we have to remember the importance of partnership and come together with others. You will say, no, I can do this on my own. I can do it by myself. I can make it on my own. Okay, go as far as you can. At some point in time, you will need the support or the assistance of someone else. And that is what's considered as partnership. You need someone to come along with you at some point in time. You know, in the midst of partnership, though, one of the things that we have to remember is that we cannot waste each other's time, right? Wasting time is it's like wasting money. And if we're looking to eradicate poverty, if we're looking to better the lives of others, then we have to remember that there's no time to waste. So for the fact that you get a partner that you want to work with or that is willing to be with you, you have to remember not to waste each other's time, because it's like you're exchanging money between the two. So I wouldn't waste your time, so I don't expect you to waste my time, right? So it's very pertinent to remember that we have to remember that, all right, the plan is already there. This is how it is. There is no need for me to go and try to reinvent the wheel. A system is already set in place. The specialists are there. Let's use them. But this is where now I go to the specialist and I say to the specialist, you have others out there. You have young ones coming up now. You have those young people, or you may even have adults as well, who are now coming up that needs that mentoring. Grab a hold of them. In today's society, just like the previous speaker said, you have the adults, the seniors, they're making rules and laws for policies for the young people, but then they're not walking the young people's shoes. One of the things we have to remember that this is not the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, or even the early 2000s. This is a totally different era. We have a totally different generation. I myself, I'm an 80s baby, and when I see certain things, sometimes I say, boy, this could not happen in the 90s or the early 2000s, because I know what it was, but it's a different time now. So as specialists, as mentors, take the time to take those other young ones and mentor them, nurture them, lead them down that path so that they themselves can be able to implement and create what's needed so that they themselves can be able to go into their community and be an agent of change, that they themselves can be able to go into their communities and say, you know what, I was not left behind. And according to the UN's principle, I am not going to leave you behind. I'm going to bring someone with me. A lot of times we have a lot of people and businesses, again, that tries to do things and say, it's me, myself, and I, me, no one else. Then when you do get attacked, no one isn't going to come to your rescue. But if you change that mindset and you bring someone along with you, you will be in a good place. You know, when myself and Dr. Ada started working together, when we started working together between our two businesses, nonprofit organizations and my for-profit, I remembered we talked, and then the different times I realized that I was helping her. And then another time I realized she's helping me. And it's like we keep exchanging hands, and that helped the two of us to grow. It's not a case whereby I said, I know more than you, no. Or she said she knew more than me, no. It's a case whereby I see your weak areas, I'm going to help you in your weak areas. You see my weak areas, I'm going to help you in my weak areas. As long as we do that, we're creating a system where we can be able to help and we can be able to go together. We can be able to approach poverty. We can be able to approach all of these different things that we are trying to eradicate. We are trying to bring families out from that darkness, bring them into the light. Then we have to say, yes, we're going to go together. We can't go alone. So when the two of us started working together, that is something that we were doing for each other. And until today, until this very day, this very minute, we still do it. And we never one day turn around and threw it in each other's face and say, oh, remember I helped you with this, or remember this, or remember that. No, Because you know what? I was able to take what she showed me and go and show it to someone else. Likewise, she was able to take what I show her and go and show it to someone else. And that is something that is very important when it comes to partnership. It's not because I know it, I give it to you means you have to keep it to yourself. You have to help others. Between every partnership, you have to remember that it goes, there's this part of it that a lot of times we tend to forget or we tend to not consider. There is resources that's needed to fulfill any idea. And any idea needs resources in order to fulfill that idea. So you might not have the resources, but you have the idea. For instance, our young sister here who is a seamstress, who learned sewing from age 13. The idea is there, but the funding is needed. The resources is needed. The resources is needed. So what happens? Here it is, you have someone else now who sees that idea, knows the value of that idea, knows the potential of that idea, knows how far that idea can go, knows how many lives that idea can touch, and says, what, you know what? I am going to now bring the resources because I have the resources. I do not have the idea, but I have all of these resources. Let me bring my resources and put it at your disposal, that you of yourself can be able to say, yes, I'm going to help others. From there, you will be able to see it, because there are plenty of people out there, they have the resources, but they don't have no idea to go with it. And that is where you find some companies, some organizations, some businesses, I have to balance the playing field, I'm going to hit some of you. This is where you find where some businesses, they go, they take the money and they just sit with it. They take the resources and they just sit on it. While you have other organizations, other businesses that are literally scraping the pot, as we say in Africa and in the Caribbean. The food is finished cooking. It is burnt at the bottom of the pot. And we now, as the few small businesses now come up and stuff like that, here it is now, we have to take the pot and we have to scrape the bottom of the pot, whatever's left over, and try to do our best with that. Whereas those other businesses, they gone with a chunk, they gone with the best, and leave us with next to nothing. Well, we have a saying in our country, especially when we cook up. Trinidadians, they call it pilau. I'm not sure what the Africans call it, but that is the best part of the food. You hear? That is the best part of the pot when it's burnt. And that again, we have another saying, when, let me see how I can say that everyone will understand. When it's burnt, it's done. But we usually say when it's burnt, it's done. Meaning it's ripe, it's ready. But let's not look at it in that context. Let's look at it in the context that, hey, my company, I was able to go and get X amount of money, early o'clock. And I don't need all of this money, really, truth be told. Or the venture that I'm looking to do, I can bring in other organizations, other businesses, or even contract some young people as well and say, here is the X amount of money. I want you to fulfill this. Here is this, here is that. And that is how the partnership can be able to be put together, whereby we can be able to say, yes, we're working towards eradicating poverty. We're working towards developing sustainable partnership. We're working towards helping communities. We're working towards helping the livelihoods of many people. And at the same time, I'm going to help your business, because I've watched how many companies go after grants. And I don't question the reason behind it going after grants and getting the grants. But what I question is the grantors, the ones who give the funding. Because here it is, you have an organization that is you have an organization that have a school established in one of the poorest area, giving the same quality and level of education and attention. The teachers and the school, it's in a dilapidated area. But then at the same time, they don't have the funding. But here it is, you have the other schools, they're getting the funding. If they write right now and say, government, I need $1 million just to buy 2 laptops or 2 computers, the government will give them. But let this same school in the dilapidated area write and ask the government just to build a latrine, a toilet. They will say no. You have that. We see that. If you go into the interland areas in various countries, you will see those are the things. So organizations coming together to partner, to be able to address things like these, to be able to attack things like these, then we can make this world a better place. And today I want to implore all the organizations, businesses, individuals, government, everybody, even down to the United Nations as well, who I'm a part of, every person, that remember the importance of partnership. It is very, very, very important. But remember, it takes 2 to tango, and it takes 2 hands to clap, not 1 hand. If you have 1 hand, God forbid, sorry to hear, but you have 1 hand and you have 5 fingers, then it takes 2 fingers just to snap. 1 finger can't snap. 2 fingers you need to snap. Either way, you need 2 to come together to work as one. Thank you very much, Dr. Ada, and good luck to each and every one of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for that concluding intervention statement from the presenters. That's a wonderful formula, giving us the practical formula of not able to clap with 1 hand and the significant need of coming together. You know, when the United Nations summarized the 17 goals, Sustainable Development Goals, and 169 targets, they summed it up into 5 P's, which is people, planet, peace, prosperity, and partnership. So United Nations is really moving issues that partnership is a necessity to human sustainable livelihood and well-being. So thank you for bringing up the need for organizations to partner together. And that's exactly what Ms. CARICOM International Foundation and the Queen's Elite Lions Club has done to partner in being able to organize this side event, which is a very impressive topic for discussion, an eye-opener for someone to start to make money at the age of 13. And at the age of 22, we are still wearing earphone and carrying phone on Facebook. I think is a thought, is a lesson that even the non-profits who are dealing with the youth and the younger ones will use this as a business model to encourage them to begin to rethink, rephrase their thinking process, to something more sustainable. We are suffering from COVID-19. For 2 years, businesses have been shut down. Nothing is going on. We don't know what is coming next. Maybe the next one will be COVID 2025. We don't know when it's coming. Or another name. We remember we had HIV and AIDS, Ebola, and then the almighty COVID came. Now that COVID has felt disappointed, maybe the whole planet was not cleared. We don't know which one will come again. So it's time for us NGOs to partner together. Let's reason together. Bring what your mission is. I bring mine. We put our heads together and begin to develop design skills, acquisition and development curriculum that can help to empower the younger ones through education, as well as establishing community cohorts. So I don't want to give the outcome yet because I've been checking to see if we have questions, and no question on the Q&A chat, which means everything is very clearly presented. So, and with that said, and our time is fast spent, we must have to leave in the next 5 minutes. So I just want to thank everyone that are here and to let you know that through this team, Partnership with Action in educating grassroots citizens for sustainable livelihood, well-being and dignity for all, this side event has been able to address investing in human capacities. Dr. Vanessa, I don't know why you're still on the screen. Investing in human capacities and basic infrastructure, fostering economic security and strengthening social protection systems, including social protection laws, addressing food insecurity and transforming agri-food system, closing poverty gaps and ending hunger, addressing multiple causes of poverty, which we've all had today, hunger and inequality in the minds of young people, promote digital and financial inclusion, and ensure equal opportunities through partnership. I bet you that this issue was highly highlighted and mentioned and spoken about from the presentation of the speakers. And the outcome from this discussion is for us at Ms. CARICOM Foundation, International Foundation and the Queen's Elite Lions Club, Queens, New York, to work towards designing skills acquisition and development curriculum on youth empowerment and education, as well as establishing community cohorts to help you to independent livelihood in times of crisis and economic recovery in emergencies and in responding to the 2030 development agenda. For the presentations today, how can we handle this? We have to encourage partnership for young people to effective social media network. there should be need to encourage partnership, whether you are from Oklahoma, New York, Liberia, Guyana, wherever, Africa, there should be need to bring a network of these young adults so that people like Ved can come and use her business model to educate them, whether virtually or physical. There is need for such partnership. And when such is done, they will carry it out to their various communities, because this is a network, is a chain we want to establish through these two organizations. We also talk about inclusive mentorship. The last speaker also spoke of mentorship, just like the speaker before him and other speakers talk about mentorship. Even Danny Glover, when he was speaking, mentioned mentorship. So mentorship is very, very important. Mentorship will encourage the young ones to be able to identify their inherent talent and skills and work themselves to developing them to economic sustainability and sustainable livelihood. You see, when you talk about Ven, nobody will tell her, oh, she's unemployed. As a PhD holder, she's unemployed. In the first instance, she identified her area of skill, her area of talent, and pursued her career towards that, up to the academic level. So whether government employs her or not, she is ready, she is equipped for her future. And she started this as early as 13 years old. So this is what the younger ones need to get inculcated into their life, that no government will make you, rather you will make the government. And it's through partnership and coming together that we can be able to achieve this successfully. We also need to talk about the, of course, I was talking about identifying their skills. We need to ascribe to bringing sustainable livelihood and well-being to communities through partnership of non-profit organizations. In communities like what Mr. Kesley mentioned in Liberia, that has no even first aid clinic centers. A lot of children are not in school. These are the issues that partnership NGOs can come together to be able to address such things, to be able to address such issues when they partner together. If your organization is into education, your organization is into health, your organization is into textile and fashion designing, then we have to come together to see how, as Dr. Banisa said, how we can get funding and grants to move into such community and establish this kind. This is a sustainable livelihood and well-being. When we eradicate poverty, we end hunger. We also think about well-being in terms of health, in terms of education, in terms of security and social protection flaws. And this is what this section, the 60th section of the Commission on Social Development, is all about. So I want to thank you without wasting much of your time. And it's been so wonderful being with you all. Thanks to wonderful speakers. And I want to call Dr. Sanchez, the founder of Miss CARICOM International, to give her closing remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Ada. I just want to say thank you to all of the presenters today. I know Senator Saunders was on for a minute, but he didn't get to speak. But I know that if he did, he would have emphasized some of the discussion, the topic that were discussed here today. I want to thank Mr. Glover, who I see is still online, and I appreciate him so much. I want to mention my Brooklyn State Senator, Kevin Parker, who heard about our program today and heard that Mr. Glover was going to be on. And so because it's Black History Month, he did a proclamation to our late Sidney Poitier, who we all missed in this time. We know that he passed away, and he was just such a great contributor to African-American Black history. And so I just want to quickly, Dr. Ada has the proclamation online, And I just want to thank Senator Kevin Parker, that he has presented this, and I will forward it. In the interest of time, I can't read everything it says, but I will read the last 3 lines. It says, the first and the last 3 lines, it says, a great state is only as great as those individual or organization who perform exemplary service on behalf of their community, whether through unique achievement in professional or other endeavorment, or simply through a lifetime of good citizenship. And of course, Mr. Pointier showed us that he had good citizenship. And it says, the resolve, therefore, I state Senator Kevin Parker recognized that in Sidney Poitier, we have an individual worthy of our highest respect and esteem, and be it furthermore resolved that a copy of this proclamation be transmitted during today's event. Signed, State Senator Kevin S. Parker, New York State Senate, 21st District, and it has today's date. And we want to thank him so much, because we must remember those who blazed the trail before us. And I also want to thank the Senator for presenting Ms. CARICOM International Foundation for our service since 2004 to the present to our community. And I will just read the first and the last line. It says, whereas a great state is only as great as those individual or organization who perform exemplary service on behalf of their community, whether through unique achievement in professional or other endeavorment, or simply through a lifetime of good citizenship. Again, and it says, resolved, therefore, I state Senator Kevin Parker recognized that in Ms. CARICOM International Foundation, we have an organization worthy of our highest respect and esteem, and be it further resolved that a copy of this proclamation be transmitted to Dr. Monica Sanchez during today's event. Signed, Senator S. Parker, New York State Senate, 21st District. We want to thank him very much because of, like Dr. Bannister says, partnership is not only the work that you put in and how you partner, but it's being recognized by your peers of the work that you're doing. I also want to read something from the Lions Club, since we were unable to have the governor on the line today. And the Lions Club motto is, we serve. Local Lions Club program includes site conservation, hearing and speech conservation, diabetes awareness, youth outreach, international relationship, environmental issue, and many other programs. You know, Lions Club International is the world's largest service club or organization. It's a 1.4 million members are dedicated to bettering the quality of life for the handicapped, the poor, the sick, and the aged. The motto of Lions Club International is, we serve. And Lions live by this motto. And that's the reason why we are partnering with the Lions Club. Because in order to have partnership, you must agree to serve. We must serve. And this is what Dr. Bannister talked about, selfish interaction of self-building and self-praising. So Ms. CARICOM has founded its whole organization on the fact that we embrace others. We want to build, we want to promote others. So I want to thank Mr. Glover again, who's been online with us. I see some of the organization that we partner with in other countries in the world, Uganda. I see Ojo Paul has been on the line. I see in the Gambia, I see Yusuf Baldi on the line. I see in Nigeria, we have Anthony, and we also have Pastor Jeff, and we have Darko Emmanuel in Ghana. So I want to say it's because of partnership. This is what we do. In order to have good citizenship for sustainable livelihood, we must partner. And so I want to leave you to say, I thank all those who were involved, and we are committed in the Decade of Action to continue to serve and to continue our partnership. Thank you, Dr. Ada. You did a wonderful job. Mr. Glover, I see you still on the line. I don't know if you're there. Maybe you, if you're there, maybe you'd like to just to say goodbye to everybody, because everybody is so in love with you. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart to have always been a supporter of Ms. CARICOM and what we do. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Glover, can you unmute yourself and give us the last word?
I don't know if he's still there. Maybe he's on some, I see him there, but I don't know if he's on. But I am so.
That's okay. That's okay. We've had. So thank you, everyone. That one more thing is that the Commission on Social Development, the 60th section, is still ongoing from Monday to Friday this week. So feel free to log on to UN Web TV to listen to the sections. And also, we have 8 years more to go on the Decade of Action, the 2030 agenda. So time is now for serious partnership, and let's ignite action for a sustainable partnership that can create opportunities to sustainable livelihood, well-being, and dignity for all. We thank you for coming. God bless you all. Thank you, Dr. Nicholas, and thank you, Ven. We will not want to see you next February. We want to see you tomorrow. Thank you so much. God bless
Thank
you
you
all
so
for
much,
coming.
everyone. Great event. Thank you so much.
And good evening or good night. Thanks to everyone who called at their sleep time. From Africa, from Guyana. Thank you for being, that shows the spirit of determination that you want to learn more. So now let's get to business. Let's get to work. Time is now. Thank you.
Thank you, and have a good weekend. Thank you, Dr. Ada. You did a great job as usual. Thank you, Dr. Bannister, and all the speakers. Claire, we need to engage you more, much, much more, not once a year. So Van, thank you. You're still such an angel on this. You're such an inspiration to the young people. Dr. Kessley, I don't know what you would do when you are well prepared. Dr. Bannister, thank you. Thank you to everyone. And again to Mr. Glover, our hats off. I'm sorry the senator didn't get to speak. He was online, but as you know, it's the end of the week, and
yes,
and these things
no problem. We'll have it some other time.
Yes. Thank
All
you,
right.
Doc.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.